Welcome to State of Unity podcast, where we talk with people who used to live the ordinary and are now living in the extraordinary. On today's episode, Vivi Tai shares what it felt like returning home to a family disappointed in her outcome, how she learned to love her country, and what led to her freedom of expectations. Hi, Vivi. We're both freezing, but you a little bit more than
me. Thank you for having me here on the podcast.
Yes, thanks so much for making time for me. I'm really excited to learn about your journey. And so the title of your book is Living Through Alchemy, which I definitely want to dive into that a little bit later. But so just to start out with, can we hear a little bit about your roots, kind of like where your life started, the journey that led to where you are now, because where your life began and where you are now are opposite sides of the world, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for sure. It will be quite a journey to share. First of all, thanks for inviting me to the podcast and giving me a chance to share my story and just get it out to the world, because it's kind of my mission now to get to inspire people to live authentically and get to be who they are and find their own freedom and peace within themselves. That's the reason why I wrote my book. So about my background story, I was born in Vietnam. I was born and raised there. And I moved to the US when I was 17 as an exchange student. So I'm kind of like a black sheep family. To most kids around my age at 17, they would be so attached to their home and their family, right? But for me, that was my first taste of freedom, and I was just overly excited to like experience different culture and be and just explore the world in my eyes by myself. So that was the first time that I was kind of like, traveling is like really interesting and how much I actually love freedom, because when I was a kid, like I was always like exploring the world and get to travel to different places. But as I go through the stages of life in the US, because I would have to go to school and graduate, and then I kind of lost track of my passion, and I ended up living everyone else, having a very normal corporate life and try to please everyone, my employer in the work life. And so I could stay there in the US because I was there on the visa basis. I was there H-1B visa. So my employment is very much dependent on my employer. So whether I can stay in the country is depend on them, right? So I had to like really push myself, um, getting different degrees, getting high, and please everyone and just please my boss. And it just eventually that put a lot of burden. And I just got so depressed living that life because I wasn't very authentic doing what I actually love. I was just basically chasing of trying to get the green card and try to get settled in the US. And when I get to down what that green card means for me is all about have that freedom to live and to be myself and just to follow my so by the after 12 years living there, by the end of 24, like I just broke down. Like it's kind of like a mental breakdown, and I just couldn't bear it anymore because I hated in my life. and every day going to work was kind of like carrying a rock on my shoulder. And I was like, I couldn't even get out of bed. And so I was just questioning myself, like, what is my existence? What is really my life purpose? At that time, I kind of, since I was questioning myself, and the synchronicity happened, and I stumbled upon a book called The Alchemist.
That's a
And
great book.
it's a really good book.
Yeah.
Um, so I read it the first time. I didn't quite get it. I was like, the storyline is really good. And I was like, get me to reignite my passion for traveling that has long forgotten, because I was just so focused in, my getting a stable life and getting higher in my degrees in my corporate life. So eventually, by the end of 2014, I did end up losing the job. It was very messy, how that ended with my employer. It wasn't very pretty, and I wasn't very proud of it, but it needed to happen in order to be out of that lifestyle, um, to get me on track and be more aligned with my life purpose. And I get to um, be introduced with alchemy through the Alchemist book by the Paulo Coelho. But at that time, I didn't understand the concept of alchemy, obviously. But what I learned from the book was that to listen to your heart and let that guide, is a passion, like just follow that passion. And so when I sit with myself and I just ask, okay, what is it that I do right now when I lose everything? I lost my job, so I was about to leave the country. I was pushed to leave the country, even though I didn't want. I was really attached to it. And that's the stage I was talking in my book, that there were several different options to consider in order to stay in the country. Um, and but during that time, I also met a friend who happened to be a nomad, and he's been traveling around the world for like 6, 7 years without going back to his home country. And I just thought this was really cool. It was like I read the book, and it got me to uh, in touch, get back in touch with my passion of traveling, and now it's someone in person that's actually a nomad. And like, maybe this is really possible. So that really helped me to make the decision to let go of the US and let go of that lifestyle. Nothing wrong with the country, but it's the living in that country get me to kind of chase the materialism,
Mm.
um, the realistic ideals of the 3D world, of whatever that the societies that put on you. And so um decided to leave, and and then from there I was like, okay, what's next? you know what I want to do with my life now. So when I went back to Vietnam with my family, I had to face a huge amount of shame, because it's like uh going back home with nothing. Because like in Asian, like when you go abroad to study and to work, it's like it brings honor and prestige to your family. But now it's like going like a failure. I feel like you're gonna be a burden on your family, like
Mm.
after so much investment and hope that they put on you, because it's like I had to pay several $100,000 for school, not just 1 degree, but 2 degrees. Um,
So
so,
it was considered a failure because you didn't keep the job,
yeah,
or because you came
yeah.
back to the country.
A little bit of both, I think.
Hmm. Okay.
It's more about coming back with nothing, because like they expect you to become. That's for like either an engineer or a doctor. I was an engineer, but I lost my job, right? Um, so I couldn't really bear it's like during that time I would just kind of shut everything out of my life. Couldn't face anyone. So it's like the energy felt very heavy for me. And when I did that, I because I isolated myself, um, I was like, then what can I do now? When what's next in my life because I don't have anything else anymore. And it's just like that voice, that passion for traveling up. And that's how I was like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna go solo travel. I cannot because as a Vietnamese citizen, I cannot travel. Or I can only travel within Southeast Asia. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make the best of what I have. I left the country when I was very, and there's very little that I actually knew about Asia. I'm like, this is actually a huge continent. Why don't I just go and explore it on my own? Um, so during that time, 2 years living in Vietnam, like be in touch with my root, I explore a huge view of Asia. There's so much more about my country and Southeast Asia that I knew nothing about. I was like, how
Mm.
come like so many foreigners that come to my they actually really love it and they wanted to stay there, but I don't really like it. Why? So so I have to like refresh everything in my mind and try to look at the place and the environment that I live in a different eyes to get myself excited is to go out there and explore. And I had a blast. I had the best time ever in my life going around, explore different places. I solo travel in Southeast Asia. There's just so many stories about it. Like I get to see the Angkor Wat at sunrise. I get to swim with the plankton. It's like the bioluminescence, like at
Mhm.
night in the ocean. It's just absolutely phenomenal, amazing. Um, I was like, this is really what I want to do. Like I just want to travel forever if I could.
So I want to ask you
And
a
so,
question because
yeah,
that's such a to have that thought that like to look at your own country with a fresh set of eyes. How did you kind of shift that mindset? Was it just removing judgment from your thoughts and just kind of experiencing everything new? Or what was the process that got you to be able to do that?
I think it's more about curiosity for me because um, when I lived in the US, I had many American friends, and they always wanted to talk like good things about Vietnam. But for me, like I never really liked my own country back then. Um, there was like the food. Of course, I love the food and stuff, but I just didn't imagine myself living there. I couldn't see myself living there. So that was the reason why I didn't like it. I didn't like the conservative um, and some bias culture as well. Why was these people actually the foreigners coming into my country and they love it so much, and a lot of them actually ended up staying there.
Mhm.
That's what triggered my curiosity, and I was like, can I see it in their eyes, like the way they see it? Like, why am I so pessimistic about my own place? Like, there has like I wanted to see it in their perspective because there was nothing else for me actually. And I was just like having enough of um the downtime and being on the time staying in my room, just staying in my house with my family, and we didn't get along very well. So I tried to figure out something to do, and like maybe I should learn to look at things in their own way. So I went and hang out with some of the expats in the city, and I asked them like what they really like about the city and what their favorite things to what things to do and to go, and where they have explore and travel. Um, not so much like the local, because I feel like I was more, so I was like, I feel like I should be the local, but I'm not, but I don't know that much. So I didn't get in so much in touch with the local people, but because I see everything in a different perspective, like an outsider point of view into my own place. And that's how it got me to overcome that fear of coming back to Vietnam and being the loser. And, I get something to be excited about. Because every time I get to travel, it's like an escape. It's like an escape of the reality that I came back home as a failure, like an escape of like everything that I was not enjoying about in my life, for not my family, for not enjoying the job that I was working on in Vietnam also. So just follow that passion and trying to look at things in a different perspective, um, and get to know like the travelers and the expats that living there and traveling there, and try to see what they see so that I can um place and love my country. And I did, like, eventually I'm like, I had such an amazing time in Vietnam. I had so many interesting traveling stories there. It would take more than an hour to tell all the stories, but I love it so much more now, and I'm just so thankful for that opportunities to get back home and get back in touch with my roots and not being so Americanized. That's what I thought when I was living in the US for so long and kind of lost touch with my own culture. So now I feel like I have more reference for the Asian culture, and um, I get to see beauties in different size and different aspects in different country, even in my country, which I kind of ignore earlier in my life. So yeah.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Of all the people I've spoken with, I've never met somebody that took that perspective. That's really unique. And I think just kind of shows how in touch you are with, I think, getting the results that you want. It's really a unique thing to do.
Yeah. So when I met a lot of expats and travelers there, like everyone kind of like have something that they don't like about their own country, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why they travel. That's the reason why they wanted to live and live in different place, because they can't stand in where they come from. So I'm like, but I actually very interested in going to see your country. So maybe if you look at it in different ways, there's something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about perspective, and maybe I'm a little bit out, little way ahead here, but that's what Alchemy, my book, is all about, like getting people to see things in different perspective, even though your challenges, your struggle, your problems, whatever you're facing in life right now, understand the concept of alchemy, help you to um, see everything in the upper level so that you can come to a solution, different point of view, because sometimes we can just get stuck in that box, in our own problems, and we're not seeing outside of the box. We can be more creative, and we can be calmer and more at peace of where we are in our life, and then we can be more proactive, searching for a solution to overcome the challenges. Basically, seeing on the struggle that you have in life is a challenge. What can we do about it? Um, like how can I get to the next stage of my own evolution of just being like a victim mentality and just cry about your problem and not doing anything. So
Yeah.
and blame everything for happening to you. So, but at that time, I didn't understand about alchemy. Like everything that happened to me for a reason. It happened to me because I needed to get out of the materialistic world, and I to be back more aligned with my own life purpose and my soul journey. And even though I didn't understand everything at that time, but there's a lot of synchronicities that happen that kind of guide me through along the
Mm-hmm.
way. And I'm just very thankful that I actually listened to it and I took a chance to eventually let me here to write about my book and having my YouTube channel to share people and on the stories and hopefully inspire them to step out of their comfort zone and also living their own authentic life as well, because this is what we really need most in our world right now, like for people to reflect and get back with who they really are at the core, because that's how we can find freedom from within, because
Mm-hmm.
it's doesn't that's so above is below, so within is without. So if you don't have the freedom within ourselves, cannot obtain the freedom within the world. So the more people can find freedom, the more we can have freedom in our world. And it's that going on in the world right now, our lives are very restricted. So
Yeah.
that's the only that I think we can really free ourselves, um,
I think it's so
regardless.
interesting, even when you were saying how you were reading the book and it kind of got you back in touch with what your heart was saying. And then you happened to be talking with your friend who was a nomad. And I think, these things are constantly coming to us, like these little hints and these little pokes. But if our mind and
Mhm,
our heart isn't open to it, I feel like we never notice it. But once you become open to it, then like you did, like you start to notice them all and you start to pick up on the signs and these just
mhm,
kind of just pull yourself more in that direction. So I think, yeah, just like being aware and in
mhm.
tune with your heart makes such a difference, because you're actually able to hear those little whispers that the universe is sending you.
Yeah, definitely. It's just because we are told that, oh, maybe it's just your imagination, and it's just kind of hard, and it's hard for people to get to the route just like they're not familiar with, going into the unknown is pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely is the universe on always sending you signal, like always sending you
Yeah.
synchronicity
Yeah.
to pay attention, obviously. And that's what something that Paulo Coelho say a lot in the book, is that it's the omen. You have to pay attention to the omen. Is
Mm,
the language of the universe.
yeah.
So you have to learn the language of the universe, and that's just all about that's why Eckhart Tolle always say that you have to stay in present and stay in the now. That's when you can actually live, because you always get somewhere else and worry about everything else. You're not going to be able to pick up on those omens, like language of the universe, and
Mhm.
guiding you along the way. And I think I'm very, very fortunate to um to be able to have those guys. I don't know how. I guess it just happened to me very naturally. And I guess the events was quite shocking, and I didn't have anything to do. Like I could really cling very hard to it and just make the different choices um, that may not have got me to where and that's what I see in a lot of people's lives, because so many people in my situations, but they chose to stay in the old lifestyle because it's just too scary, just
Mhm.
get off that track, get away from the society and do some things on your own, like, because you don't know what's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a
but
big
I
part of it
have
is
to,
just trusting. For me, anyway, I notice a lot of like the fear of the unknown. If I can trust myself and my determination, it doesn't make
mhm.
it really easy, but it makes it a little bit easier, right? When I can like look
Yeah,
back and see all the different things that I've went through and that I've succeeded in, it helps me remind myself that like you did all these things. This is scary
yeah,
too, but worst case
yeah.
scenario, you'll figure it out. You always do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think Justin is a huge, huge part. Uh, but we like not a lot of people can even solo travel, So it's like we all
Yeah.
very not a lot of us are just dependent. We live in a very codependent society. Um, so that's why there's just so many dysfunction, and it's pretty scary to be on your own.
Mhm.
But living the nomad life has taught me so much of like facing all different fears of the unknown and fear of the loneliness and everything, or like all ranges of fear.
So
but
that's a good
yeah.
segue then. Can you share one of your favorite stories of like during travels, whether a good experience or a bad experience or just one of your favorite moments?
So I think the most memorable one was actually Vietnam when I was traveling in northern Vietnam. And I was traveling with two other friends on motorcycle. It's like scooters. So each of us have our own scooter, and we was going through the mountain road. And it was about getting dark. Long way, and in Asia, maps is not very reliable, even with Google Maps, because it's just too remote, and very it's a very rural area because it's in the mountains and in northern Vietnam. It's just like small tribes and villages there, so there's almost no civilization. So we were going through that road, and it was very bad. Roads in Vietnam is not like here. And it was a mountain road, and it was about getting dark. So I wasn't very confident with my like motorcycle driving skill on the scooter skill. So when I was going downhill, very rocky because it's on gravel, so I fell off the scooter and I hit my knees pretty badly and my ankles. um I also hit my head, but luckily I was wearing a helmet, so it wasn't like getting to my brain. You have to keep going because there's literally nothing here and there's no hospitals anywhere else around. So I was like, okay, well, and on the map, village was there, but when we got there, there was no village. There was like no one around there. So I was like, maybe we lost. We have to keep going. There's only one way, so that's the only way to get out of there. Um, so I was like, okay, well, I was very much in pain, but there was we could do. So I decided to keep going with that. And so, but then when I looked further, I saw a light coming out, the light of trees. So I'm like, maybe there's like a house there or something. So I, so it's my friend helping me to carry the scooter. I walked there and check out like where the lights come from. So there's the farmer house there, like in that area. Is the only house in that area. It's more like a shed. It's not even a house. So I and I asked them if I could stay there for a night, and I was showing them that I was bleeding on my knees and my elbows. I'm like, I just drive anymore, and I was traveling with two other friends, and if we could stay there with them overnight, because I could speak Vietnamese, so they could understand. Two of my
Ah,
other friends, they was like travelers, so they foreigners, so
yeah.
so they couldn't speak Vietnamese. Luckily, so So they let us to stay overnight there, and it's a couple with a young newborn baby and their mother. So the house is very basic. Everything is on the floor. There's no furniture or anything. And they live a very, very simple life. They have livestock and farms. They do not have money. So in that area, they don't use money, whatever they have to trade. So everything they eat is really simple, but like they brought everything in the house, all the house to feed the three of us. And they get me some medicine to some alcohol just to clean my wounds. Was not very pleasant, but and I think it's iodine or something just to clean my wounds. But I had there's no bathroom, anything in the house. Everything is our house. So if you want to use the bathroom, you have to go outside. So it super simple living, and I just thought, how could people actually live like this, but they were the kindest I've ever met in my life. They were just so excited to be able to help me and my friends to get comfortable and stay in their place, and we all ended up like sleeping together on the floor because it's just basically one shed, right? A pin curtains or something to separate the sleeping space, pretty much. And they kill their chicken to feed us, but I tried to give them some money, but they didn't money, and that's how they were telling me, like, no, we don't use any money here. And that's the experience just got me thinking so much about the simple life, and like how kind people actually are when actually involved with money, when they're very happy, and they're very happy and very kind people.
Something we work our whole life for, they're not even interested in, but it's the whole purpose of our existence. And they're like, no, we don't have any use for that.
Yeah. People is most of the time people are a lot friendlier than you actually think. So that's kind of like the myth, to like be skeptical of strangers. And I actually have a lot of strangers that come help me throughout my life. Whenever I'm in trouble, like on the road or like the train station and all of that. So
travel
that's one of my
it forces you to kind of, you, especially when you're solo, you just talk to people more because you have to, and it allows you to drop your guard, I think, in a good way, to just be more receptive to that kindness, whereas otherwise we're so inundated with our own lives and our own path and our own mission that we're not really even pausing to consider, meeting somebody new. That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing.
I find that most of the time people are very eager to help. They can be a little bit shy if they don't speak your language, but like if they can kind of somewhat understand you, they do everything to help. I met a girl in Japan at the train station, and I was asking her for direction, and she didn't speak English, and she was like, "Let me call someone on the phone that I English to talk to you."
Oh my God. Yeah. I was in Japan a couple of years ago, and the kindness in that country is unlike anywhere in the world. Just the whole culture is, it's an experience. I think I remember that more than the sites, if that makes sense. Like the places that we saw and the things that we did, the way of the culture is a lot more impactful there for me. But anyway, I want to be respectful of your time. So is there anything that we can do to help support you, or anything you're working on now that you'd like to share?
So right now, I recently just published my book. It's called The Living Through Alchemy, A Transformational Journey to Freedom. So the book is basically about my life story, like going through the different stages of alchemy. It's very much spiritual and how people to reflect and get to understand where they are on their life journey so that they can have a different perspective and take the initiative approach to solve the life problem, to learn more about spirituality, to be more with themselves and be more aligned with their soul's evolution and their life purpose. So available on Amazon. Or you can also visit, like the listeners can also visit my website, just go on livingthroughalchemy.com and actually download the first chapter of the book for free. To that chapter is on about understanding what alchemy is and really impact our life in general. So, and I'm quite active on social media, mainly just in and YouTube. So my Instagram is where I share my passion for photography on my travel. So it's called Smiley VV05. YouTube channel, I share about my van life here in Canada, my travel across the country, and my every in my daily life sometimes that I share on YouTube, and it's called Personal Growth Through Van Life. So I share inside the life and my growth journey on YouTube channel. So if people are interested, they can check out my videos there.
Awesome. Thank you. I've had so much fun talking with you. Your life has
been... It's my pleasure too.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable. So be sure to have all of your links in the show notes. And I'm definitely going to be checking out the first chapter because I wanted to get into what alchemy means to you, but we didn't have enough time. So I'll be able to read it in your book, which is great. So one last question, which I like to ask all of my guests, and I feel like I already know your answer, but the question is, if you are given a sailboat to sail around the world in, and all you have to do is give her a name, what would you name it?
Oh, a sailboat. I'm not very good at this, but I would say, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is Aurora. I always really like that name because it's like the it's very pretty and it's beautiful and it's one of the destinations that I kind of want to go to. So
Aurora, is that what you said?
Right, yeah.
I was expecting you to say Alchemy, so you got me.
Oh, Alchemy would be a good name. I was like, because I was actually thinking about taking a boat to go to Yukon area.
Oh, fun. Well, thank you again for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll definitely be keeping up with you on your YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing all your beautiful photos as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kara.
Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with anyone else who may find it interested. Check out stateofunity.org for upcoming trips and to learn more about our mission. We hope to see you out there soon.